Three children, Jack, Jill, and their little dog Buster, were playing in the park. They had been there for hours, running around, playing tag, and throwing a ball for Buster to fetch. The park was their favorite place to spend their weekends, a haven of green grass, tall trees, and endless fun. It was a bright and sunny day. The sky was a clear, brilliant blue, with only a few fluffy white clouds drifting lazily by. The sun shone warmly, casting a golden glow over everything. The air was filled with the sounds of laughter, birds singing, and the distant hum of a lawnmower. But after a while they grew tired of their usual games. They had played hide-and-seek, climbed the jungle gym, and even tried to catch butterflies. Now they were sitting on the grass feeling a bit bored and wondering what to do next. "Let's explore," said Jack, his eyes sparkling with excitement. He was always ready for an adventure, always looking for something new and exciting to discover. Jill and Buster perked up at his suggestion, their boredom forgotten. Behind the old oak tree they found something new. It was a part of the park they had never really paid attention to before, a quiet, shady spot where the grass grew a little taller and the trees stood a little closer together. It was a small wooden door, almost hidden by ivy. The door was old and weathered, with a tiny brass handle that glinted in the sunlight. It looked like it had been there for a very long time, forgotten and unnoticed. "Look!" cried Jill, her eyes wide with wonder. She had never seen anything like it before. The door seemed almost magical, like something out of a fairy tale. It looked like a tiny door for fairies, the kind of door you might read about in a storybook, where tiny creatures lived in hidden worlds just beyond the reach of human eyes. Carefully, Jack pushed the door open. It moved slowly, as if it hadn't been opened in years. The hinges creaked softly, adding to the sense of mystery and anticipation. It creaked softly, as if inviting them inside. The sound was almost musical, a gentle, welcoming note that made them all the more curious about what lay beyond. "Should we?" whispered Jill, a little afraid. She was excited, but also a bit nervous. What if there was something scary on the other side? But her curiosity was stronger than her fear. Buster wagged his tail, excited to explore. He sniffed at the door, his nose twitching with interest. To him, it was just another adventure, another chance to discover something new and exciting. Holding their breath, they stepped through the doorway. One by one, they crossed the threshold, leaving the familiar world of the park behind. The park disappeared behind them. The sounds of laughter and birdsong faded away, replaced by a hushed, expectant silence. They found themselves in a place unlike any they had seen before. It was an enchanted forest filled with towering trees, sparkling streams, and the soft glow of magical lights. The air was filled with the scent of flowers and the gentle rustle of leaves. It was a place of wonder and mystery, a hidden world waiting to be explored. Tall trees reached towards the sky, their branches forming a canopy overhead. Sunbeams danced on the forest floor, dappled and shifting. The air hummed with the buzz of unseen insects. "Wow," breathed Jill, her fear forgotten. The trees whispered secrets to each other in the gentle breeze. Strange and beautiful flowers bloomed in every color imaginable. Some of the flowers giggled as the children brushed past. Buster barked playfully, chasing after butterflies with shimmering wings. Everything in this forest was alive with magic. "This place is amazing!" exclaimed Jack, his eyes shining with excitement. He couldn't wait to see what else they might discover in this enchanted woodland. As they walked deeper into the woods, the sunlight began to fade. The whispering trees grew quieter, the air felt cooler. "It's getting late," said Jill, a little worried. Suddenly, they came across a clearing bathed in an ethereal light. Hundreds of tiny lights flickered amongst the trees. "Fireflies!" cried Jack, running towards them. But these fireflies were different. They glowed with a soft blue light. As Jack reached out to touch one, it flew away, joining the others in a swirling dance. "They seem lost," said Jill, noticing how the lights darted around frantically. A low humming noise filled the air, making the children feel uneasy. "We should help them," said Jack, determined. He tried to follow the fireflies, but they moved too quickly. The humming sound grew louder, making it hard to think. Then Buster started barking. He ran towards a large oak tree at the edge of the clearing, wagging his tail excitedly. "What is it, boy?" asked Jill. Peeking behind the tree, they saw a faint glimmer of light. It flickered like a candle in the wind. "Maybe someone's there," whispered Jack, his heart pounding. Cautiously, they approached the light. As they got closer, they realized it was coming from a small wooden house. Smoke curled from its chimney. Timidly, Jack knocked on the door. His small hand trembled as he rapped on the weathered wood, the sound echoing through the dense forest. The trees around them seemed to close in, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out. Jack glanced nervously at Jill, who stood beside him, her eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and fear. They had been wandering for hours, lost in the labyrinth of trees, when they stumbled upon this mysterious cabin. It was their only hope of finding shelter and perhaps some answers. It swung open with a creak, revealing a cozy room lit by a crackling fire. The warmth from the fire was a stark contrast to the chilly air outside, and the soft glow of the flames cast dancing shadows on the walls. The room was furnished with rustic wooden furniture, a plush rug, and shelves lined with old books and trinkets. It felt like stepping into a different world, one that was inviting and safe. But the room was empty. No one was home. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the occasional crackle of the fire. Jack and Jill exchanged puzzled glances. Who had lit the fire if no one was here? The sense of unease began to creep back in, gnawing at the edges of their newfound comfort. "Hello?" called out Jill, her voice echoing in the silence. She took a tentative step forward, her eyes scanning the room for any signs of life. The echo of her voice seemed to linger as if the walls themselves were whispering back. She called out again, louder this time, but there was no response. The room remained eerily still, only the fire crackled in response. The flames danced and flickered, casting an almost hypnotic glow. It was as if the fire was alive, a silent guardian of the empty room. Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. The warmth of the fire was comforting, but the emptiness of the room was unsettling. They stepped inside, drawn by the warmth and light. The door creaked slightly as it closed behind them, and they both felt a sense of relief to be out of the cold. The room felt like a sanctuary, a safe haven from the dark and foreboding forest outside. They took a moment to soak in the warmth, their cold fingers and toes slowly thawing. As soon as they crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut with a bang. The sudden noise made them jump, their hearts pounding in their chests. The door seemed to have a mind of its own, closing with a force that was almost supernatural. They rushed back to the door, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if an invisible hand was holding it shut. The children jumped back in fright, their eyes were wide with fear, and their breaths came in short, panicked gasps. The cozy room that had seemed so inviting just moments ago now felt like a trap. They were prisoners in this strange empty cabin. "We're trapped!" cried Jack, rattling the doorknob. He pulled and twisted with all his might, but the door wouldn't give. Panic set in as he realized they were truly stuck. He looked at Jill, his eyes pleading for help, but she was just as scared and confused as he was. "Don't worry," said Jill, trying to sound brave. She placed a reassuring hand on Jack's shoulder, though her own heart was racing. "We'll find a way out," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. She knew she had to stay strong for both of them. "We'll find a way out." They began to search the room, looking for any hidden doors or windows. They checked behind the furniture, under the rug, and even tapped on the walls, hoping to find a secret passage. But there was nothing. The room was solid and unyielding, like a fortress, but deep down she felt a shiver of fear. What if there was no way out? What if they were stuck here forever? The thought was too terrifying to dwell on, so she pushed it aside and focused on the task at hand. They had to keep looking. There had to be a way out. What if they were stuck here forever? The question hung in the air, unspoken but ever present. The room seemed to close in on them, the walls pressing down with an almost suffocating weight. They had to find a way out, and they had to do it quickly. Time was running out, and the fire that had once been a source of comfort now felt like a ticking clock, counting down the moments until they were truly trapped. Buster whined, sensing their fear. His ears perked up and his eyes darted around the room, trying to find the source of the danger. He had always been a sensitive dog, attuned to the emotions of his human companions. Today was no different. He could feel the tension in the air, the palpable fear that gripped the children. His instincts told him that something was very wrong, and he needed to act fast to protect them. He pawed at the door, but it wouldn't budge. The door was heavy and solid, and despite his best efforts, it remained firmly shut. Buster's frustration grew as he continued to scratch and paw, his nails making a faint, desperate sound against the wood. He looked back at the children, his eyes pleading for help, but they were just as helpless as he was. The door was their only way out, and it seemed impenetrable. "We need to find another way out," said Jack, looking around for a window or a secret passage. His voice was steady, but there was an edge of panic in it. He knew that time was running out and they needed to act quickly. He scanned the room, his eyes darting from one corner to another, searching for any sign of an escape route. The room was dimly lit, and shadows danced on the walls, making it difficult to see clearly, but the only window was too high to reach. It was a small, narrow window, set high up in the wall, almost touching the ceiling. Even if they stood on their tiptoes, they couldn't reach it. The window was their only source of light, and it cast a faint, eerie glow over the room. Jack felt a pang of hopelessness as he realized that the window was out of their reach. They were trapped, with no way out. The walls were solid wood with no sign of any hidden doors. They were completely trapped. The wooden walls were thick and sturdy, and there was no indication of any secret passages or hidden doors. Jack ran his hands over the walls, feeling for any cracks or seams, but there was nothing. The room was a perfect prison, designed to keep them inside. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks, and he felt a wave of despair wash over him. Despair began to set in. The children sat down on the floor, their faces etched with worry and fear. They had been so hopeful just a few moments ago, but now the reality of their situation was sinking in. They were trapped, with no way out, and no one knew where they were. The room felt colder, and the walls seemed to close in on them. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional whimper from Buster. Suddenly they heard a soft chirping sound. It was faint at first, barely audible over the sound of their own breathing. But as they listened, it grew louder, more insistent. The sound was coming from somewhere in the room, but they couldn't quite pinpoint its source. It was a strange, almost musical sound, and it seemed to fill the room with a sense of hope. The children looked at each other, their eyes wide with curiosity and wonder. It was coming from a cage, hanging near the fireplace. The cage was small and delicate, made of thin metal bars that glinted in the dim light. It was hanging from a hook on the wall, just above the fireplace. The children hadn't noticed it before, but now, it seemed to be the only thing in the room that mattered. They moved closer, their eyes fixed on the cage, their hearts pounding with anticipation. Inside, a small bird with bright blue feathers fluttered nervously. The bird was beautiful, with vibrant blue feathers that seemed to glow in the dim light. It was small and delicate, and it looked frightened. Its tiny wings beat against the bars of the cage, and its eyes darted around, searching for a way out. The children watched in awe, mesmerized by the bird's beauty and its desperate struggle for freedom. "It's one of the fireflies!" exclaimed Jill, recognizing the blue glow emanating from the bird. Her voice was filled with excitement and hope. The fireflies were magical creatures, known for their ability to light up the darkest of places. Jill had heard stories about them, but she had never seen one in real life. The blue glow was unmistakable, and it filled her with a sense of wonder and possibility. Maybe, just maybe, the firefly could help them find a way out. Maybe it can help us. The children gathered around the cage, their faces filled with hope and determination. They knew that the firefly was their only chance of escape, and they were willing to do whatever it took to set it free. They whispered to each other, coming up with a plan to open the cage and release the firefly. The room, which had seemed so dark and hopeless just moments ago, was now filled with a sense of possibility and hope. The children felt a renewed sense of purpose, and they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they approached the cage, the bird chirped louder. "We want to help," said Jack gently. He reached out and opened the cage door. The bird flew out, circling their heads gratefully. Then it flew towards the fireplace and touched the log with its wing. A shower of sparks flew up the chimney. To their astonishment, the chimney began to glow with the same blue light as the fireflies. The humming sound returned, but this time it sounded almost melodic. The chimney grew wider and wider until it was large enough for them to climb through. The blue light enveloped them, lifting them gently into the air.